the first thing you will need to do is open a blank book template. Make sure that you scroll down and choose one of the book templates. You can choose portrait or landscape. When the book opens, it will have a few pages already created. We will delete these pages and start with a blank. Click on Add Page and add a blank page. Next, we will begin adding the parts of our book. The first thing we will be adding is a picture. To add a picture, we will click into Finder. Locate the picture on your computer. I have a folder that I like to use to keep all of my files for my workbooks. I will add a picture from here. I have now added a picture into my document. For this picture, I created it using shapes in Keynote, and I saved it as an image. I like this one because it shows the directions down below that students will need to follow once we have made this image into a placeholder. At the end of this video, I will share how you can make your own button like this. The next thing we are going to do is set this image as a placeholder. To do this, we are going to click on Format, Advanced, Define as Media Placeholder. You will notice that it now has this icon down in the corner. On a Mac, it looks like this, but on an iPad, it will be a plus button. This is important to note for your students. The next thing we can do is add text. I click on the T to add a text box to my page, and now that I have the text box added to my page, I can choose to start entering my text. After doing this, I will add a text box down below the picture for students to enter their name. In order to do this, I will first add a new text box. To do this, I will click on the T at the top of the screen. I'm going to move this below the picture, and I will format the text as I wish for it to appear when the students begin using this. Now that I've created this box, I'm going to set this as placeholder text. This way, when students click on it, it will automatically erase this text and it will add theirs. Note that it should keep the same formatting for you. To select this text, I'm going to triple click on it. Notice that all the text is now selected. The next thing I'm going to do is go to Format, Advanced, Define as Placeholder Text. You will see it now appears red. That is what should happen if it is placeholder text. When you click off of it, it will look like normal text on your page. The last step we will do is locking the elements of the page that we don't want students to interact with. In this case, this would be the welcome that is over on the right-hand side of the screen. To lock it, I will click on the Format options, click on Arrange, and then click Lock at the bottom. Now when students access this page, this will not be able to be moved around, but they will still be able to add their picture as well as their name. You could also continue formatting the page by changing the background or adding other shapes and elements. I will show you how to do a couple of these things. First, I zoomed out of my page and I have selected off of everything by clicking into the gray space on the outside. Next, I'm going to choose a background. Now that I have chosen a background, I'm going to add a shape. The Shapes library is searchable, and because I'm an art teacher, I'm going to search for art. If you add a shape and you don't want students to interact with it, make sure that you lock it. To duplicate the shape quickly, you can click on your Alt button and drag a new shape away from it. Click on Format and Style to change the color of your shape. Because these ones appear on top of the picture, I want to send them to the back. To do this, I will click on one of the shapes, then hold down my Shift key and click on the next. I then go to Arrange, and I send them to the back. Now that I have finished formatting my shapes, I'm going to select them and again click Lock. To begin creating a new page, I will click on the Add Page button. I will begin with a blank page. The next thing we are going to talk about is adding directions for audio recording. The steps that students will need to follow for audio recording include tapping the plus in the upper right-hand corner, then tapping Record Audio to add their voice. When they are finished, a speaker icon will appear on their screen. It is important to type these directions on your page so that students will have an easy-to-follow guide. I begin by adding a text box and typing those directions. I will move them over to the right-hand side of my screen. I do this so that it is easier for students to find the plus button that they need to use. I will also add an arrow that will indicate where the button is. To add the arrow, I will click on my Shapes library and search for an arrow. I will lower the opacity so that it doesn't stand out quite so much. Next, you can choose to add a shape for your students to put the recording into. I like to do this so that it's easy to find a recording when I get to a page. The way that I do this is by adding a shape to my screen that the students know that they need to add their recording to. I will also add directions that show the students how to do this. When typing the directions, I left a space for adding a button that will show what the audio recording will look like. To do this, I will add a shape, and I'm going to make mine gray because it will match the icon that appears on their screen. I could even maybe make it a little bit darker. Maybe I'll go with black. Next, I will search for speaker, and you'll get a little speaker icon that you can add on top. I will change this to white because that is how it will appear when they finish their audio recording. I shift and clicked on the black circle, and now I'm going to group these together so it becomes one button. I will move this little picture over here so that my students know what the icon is that they should be looking for. I will definitely make sure that I lower the opacity so that it doesn't look just like their actual recording, and I will also lock it in place so that they can't move it. Now that I have finished creating my directions, I'm going to lock all of this because I don't want my students to accidentally be moving it around as they navigate through the workbook. To do this, I'm going to click and drag a box, selecting all of the items. Next, I will click Lock on the right-hand side of the screen. Next, we will add drawing directions. Again, I'm going to add a page and add a blank page. This time, I want to show you how you can create your own master page template. We will create our drawing directions on a master page template. The first thing we need to do is right-click on one of our page thumbnails and click Edit Master Pages. You will see that I am now in the mode for editing your master page. The first thing I want to do is duplicate one of these pages so that I have a new page to work on. If you aren't going to be using the blank templates that came with your document, you can also delete those. I can now design this page just as we did before. The only difference is that now the page will be a template under the Add Page button at the top of the screen. I click on my blank copy, and now I will begin adding my drawing directions. The directions for adding a drawing in the Pages app include tapping the plus in the corner, tapping the Media tab, and then tapping on Drawing. I will add a text box and type these directions. Now that I've added these directions, I will move them up to the right-hand corner and again add an arrow. The next important step is to give your students a space to work. If you want to, you could leave this completely open and your students could draw anywhere except for where your directions are. But I like to provide a space for my students. I began by adding a shape from the Shapes gallery. If you wanted to, you could choose to add a certain color to the background of the shape. I would rather have it have a line around it so that it's white for the students to add their drawing to. To do this, I'm going to click on Style. I will change the fill to white, and I'm going to add a border. I can change the thickness if I want to, and when I'm finished, I want to make sure that I lock this so that as the students begin drawing, it doesn't end up moving around on them. Because I don't need the students to move anything on this page or edit it, I'm going to select all, click on Arrange, then Lock. Now that we have finished editing this master page, we could add another master page if we wanted to. I am finished, so I will click on Done. The bar at the bottom of the screen that says Edit Master Page is where you need to click Done. You can see that that master page was not added into my document. Instead, because it is a master page, it is added under the Add Page button. Now I can click Add Page, and I can add a page for my students to draw on. This is especially helpful so that you can add pages for students to draw on in the future. I strongly recommend editing master pages to make a template. To create placeholder images in Keynote, begin by clicking on File, New. You can start with any template, but I recommend starting with a plain white one. Click on Add Slide and add a blank slide. Now that we've added our blank slide, we can delete the original one. The next thing we're going to do is use shapes to build our placeholder image. For this example, I want to build a placeholder where a student will insert a picture of themselves. I begin by clicking on Shape. I will choose a shape to add as my background. I usually like to use the square, but you could use whatever you'd like. By holding down Alt and Shift, I'm able to make this a little bit bigger and expand it out from the center. Next, I will change the color. The next thing I want to do is add a silhouette of a person so that my students know what they should put in the box. The next thing I will do is click on the Shape tool once again, but this time we're going to search for person. There are many different options. I'm going to go with this one. Again, I can change the color and finalize my placeholder. The last step that I find incredibly helpful for students is to add directions to the box itself. To do this, I will click on Text. Once your placeholder is in place in the book, it will have a plus sign in the corner. I will type directions for students to tap the plus in the corner to add their photo. Again, I can format this by triple clicking to select all of the text and then changing the color and style if I wish. I also find it helpful to add an arrow to show students what I'm referring to. I can rotate the arrow by clicking on the Arrange button and changing the rotation. When I am happy with my button, I need to save it. There are two different ways that you can do this. The first one is to export images. To do this, you would click on File, Export to, Images. You can choose to export all of your images or just some of them. Then click Next. Type a name and it will create a folder for your images. The other option is to take a screenshot of your placeholder, though this option will be a lower quality. To do this, click Command-Shift-4 and drag the crosshairs around your button. The screenshot will be saved to your desktop.